Hello everyone and Merry Christmas! Wow, 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 another Christmas day, and here we are at GavsWeatherVids doing another historic video. This is going to be the third and final installment of the trilogy that we've been doing since 2020, and more about that in a moment. But I thank you so very much everybody for being here on this Christmas day. It is amazing, it is incredible that people want to spend this time with me and with GavsWeatherVids on their Christmas day. So thank you to each and every one of you. I hope you're having a lovely day. I hope this Christmas day is proving to be the Christmas day of your dreams, and it's everything that you wanted, everything that you wished for. So thank you so much to all of you for being here on this Christmas day. Right, so this is the third and final part of the trilogy. In 2020 we looked at all Christmas days back to 1836 to present. In 2021 we looked at all New Year's Day, or all New Year Eve and days from 1836 to present. We are going deeper into the winter for this third and final instalment of the trilogy. We're going to be looking at all February 2nds, or all Candlemas Days. There is a bit of a connection between Candlemas Day and Christmas. More about that in a second. So the last two videos that we did, Christmas 2020, Christmas 2021, we was totally mild versus cold Christmases and mild versus cold New Year's. Mild came out on top both times. Will be interesting to see whether mild comes out on top at the beginning of February. We're deeper into winter, technically, historically right in the coldest phase of the winter. Normally, end of January, early February. So it's going to be interesting to see this, whether mild or cold comes out on top. And we will have a running count as we go through all of these years. So I'll get on that for you in a second. I want to say thank you so much to Richard for our lovely Christmas day gift. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to my lovely friend Richard Traut for the amazing gift there. Thank you so much, Richard. I hope you're having a lovely Christmas as well, my friend. Merry Christmas to Richard. Merry Christmas to all of you. Wow, wow, wow. It's Christmas Day, everyone. I don't know. They do come round ever quicker as you get older. You notice it as you get older, but time seems to speed up. So it only seems like 2 minutes ago since we was doing the Christmas Day 2021 video, and here we are at 2022. I don't know, but thank you so much everybody being here. I hope you're having a lovely Christmas day, and I think we will get on with the direct video. So just to say, I found this from English Heritage. There is a bit of a connection between Candlemas Day, February the 2nd, and Christmas Day. So leave your Christmas decorations up until February, says English Heritage. What they say with this is, after an especially tough year, English Heritage is encouraging the public to do as their medieval ancestors did and leave their festive adornments until Candlemas Day on 2nd of February. This opposes the theory that leaving decorations up beyond 12 night is bad luck, which is the modern take on the tradition. The charity will be following its own advice. Several of its historic places with decorations remain in place throughout January. Falling exactly 40 days after Christmas, Candlemas, or the Feast of the Purification of the Blessed Virgin Mary, was observed as the official end of Christmas in medieval England. The date itself was a great feast day, and is so called because candles intended to be used in churches in the coming year will be blessed on that day. There were also candlelit processions in honour of the feast. Evidence that decorations were kept up until the evening before Candlemas is well documented. To this day, Christmas cribs remain in place in many churches until Candlemas, and their removal is described in the early 17th century poem, which we shall not read, but there it is, Candlemas Eve by Robert Herrick, 1591 to 1674. So there you go. I bet you didn't know that. There is a connection from Christmas to Candlemas. Right, well, this is it then. We're going to start off with the year of 1836. This is as far back as we can go to. We're going to look at every single Candlemas Day, every single 2nd of February from 1836 all the way up to 2021. Let's do it! We're going to start off then on the 2nd of February 1836. We're looking cold and unsettling. So we've got a cold one starts off in this area of low pressure. The upper air temps is looking pretty cold. I reckon there'll probably been some snow with that. Right, let's have a look at next year. Now, what you have to consider when we go right way back into the 1800s and whatnot is that it's a different time, it's a different era. Now, charts about now would be mild and would be, you know, quite spring-like probably in early February. Back then could well have been fogged up and smog and all that kind of thing going on during Industrial Revolution. So this is a great example, actually, 1837. It technically is a mild chart. If you look at the upper air temperatures, they're looking nice and mild. But because we've got this ridge that's sitting over to the east of it, I suspect that will probably have been cold and frosty in that era. And there will probably have been quite a lot of fog as well. I think with these sort of charts, we probably do chalk them up as mild, but keep in mind, because technically they are, from an upper air temperature, upper atmosphere perspective, but keep in mind, it's not quite as straightforward as that. So we'll put that down as relatively mild and dry, 2nd of February in 1837, but might have been cold and frosty. Right, next year is 1838. This looks dry and cold under that area of high pressure. It's in a different position, different place, but look at the upper air temperatures. They are looking cold. So dry and cold, potentially very cold for that one. Next year will be 1839. This was a rather milder, wetter year. So we've got low pressure in the North Atlantic, bringing in cloud and rain from off the Atlantic Ocean. Upper air temperatures look quite cold, though, especially so for more eastern areas. So I suspect it might be like starting cold, turning milder, something like that. Maybe a band of snow pushing through. So I think we put that one down as cold as well. This looks rather straightforwardly mild, low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic. That will be bringing quite a bit of wet and windy weather in from the Atlantic Ocean. That is 1840. And then we have a very classic cold chart. It's the 2nd of February 1841. Beautiful Scandinavian high, bringing in easterly winds. So this is looking really cold. Those upper air temperatures, bitterly cold. Snow coming in from the east on those easterly winds. This is the first sort of classic cold chart that we've seen in 1841. Bitterly cold with easterly winds from the blessed Scandi high, if you like that kind of thing. Totally different for 1832. That's a dry and mild chart. Maybe rain in the north, but rather mild and dry down in the south. Look at the upper air temperatures. We're pushing in those yellow colours from off the Atlantic. So relatively mild for 1842. So sorry about that, everybody. Right, on to the next one. We've got another mild chart. This is 1843 with low pressure to the north and high pressure to the south. Winds coming in from that mild, wet, windy, westerly direction. Next year is going to be 1844. This one looks colder. So after a couple of mild years, we have a cold one with low pressure to our south, high pressure blocking from Scandinavia towards Greenland and Iceland. Upper air temperatures looking really quite cold, especially so to the east, and that cold air to the east is on its way in. Next year is 1845, and this one also looks cold, with high pressure ridging in the Atlantic, bringing in cold north or northeast winds. Those shower probably coming in to northern and eastern areas with that one. We're back to milder conditions for 1846 with low pressure between Greenland and Iceland and a westerly flow that will bring outbreaks of rain. And they have a much colder year for 1847. Big blocking area of high pressure between Greenland and Scandinavia. Winds coming in from a bitterly cold easterly direction. Upper air temperatures don't look excessively cold, but I reckon on the surface that will be a pretty bitter easterly wind. It will bring snow with it. And then 1848 is back to milder conditions again, with west-southwesterly winds, high pressure over France, and bringing the wet and windy weather in from off the Atlantic Ocean. We've also got another mild year for 1849, with deep polar vortex around Greenland and Iceland, and high pressure so around France. We're pulling in a southwesterly that looks unsettled for the north, dry for the south, and very mild. Wet and windy for 1850 with low pressure north of Scotland, wind and rain sweeping the country. 1851 looks a little bit cooler, but not excessively so. I think the weather's still mostly driving in from off the Atlantic with that one. And also another mild year for 1852 with again low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic, bringing spells of rain and a southwesterly wind. February 2nd, 1853 is building up a Scandinavian high, blocking this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic. It is cold. We're driving in cold air from the east there. And I suspect that high pressure over Scandinavia takes over by the 4th of February 1853. We're in a classic east wind courtesy of that Scandinavian high. And that brings snow showers into the east with it. Right, our next year is going to be 1854. This looks dry and mild. We're back to mild once again. And then we've got 1855, part of a very cold winter, very cold February, it's a really cold February, I think, in 1855. May even have had a sub-zero CT. And just generally quite a cold chart. High pressure is blocking to our north. We've got a deep cold pool over at Scandinavia. I reckon the winter of 1854, 1855 will turn up as a historic video at some point in the future. Definitely put that one down as a cold year. Another cold chart for 1856 under that area of high pressure. That's bringing mostly dry but also cold and frosty weather with it. That's 1857, low pressure coming in off the Atlantic against a Scandinavian high. Looking at the upper air temperatures, it is cold as well. So this area of low pressure will probably be bringing a snow event in with it as that precipitation comes in against that blocking area of high pressure snow across the country from that area of low pressure running into cold air. A much more straightforwardly mild chart for 1858 with winds in from the Atlantic. And then we've got a little bit of a cold snap showing up for 1859 with low pressure in the North Sea and a cold northerly wind. 1860 also looking relatively cold with high pressure to our southwest, pulling down winds from a northerly direction. Upper air temperatures are looking cold there in 1860. Straightforwardly mild for 1861 with the Azores high ridging into southern parts of England and northern France, so dry and very mild for 1861. Also very mild for 1862 with the air coming up from the Azores, probably rain in northern and western regions, mostly dry in the south. And another mild year for 1863, mild, wet and windy there, courtesy of that area of low pressure. 1864 also looks mild and unsettled, so we've got a run of milder years here into the 1860s. This one looks a little bit cooler. This is 1865 with trough of low pressure over top of the country and high pressure blocking within northern latitudes. Cold air just digging in to the north of Scotland. I'll probably still put that one down as a relatively mild year, to be honest. This one also looking relatively mild in 1866 as well, with winds in from the Atlantic, probably wet and windy with that one. 1867 keeps a run of mild years going, so high pressure over France, low pressure around Greenland, Iceland, in comes those strong westerly winds, and it carries on for 1868 as well. That looks very mild, wet and windy for 2nd of February 1868. 1869 is looking like this, part of the mildest, warmest winter on record for the central England temperature, but actually a little bit of a cold snap trying to take place in the north. However, I would still put that one down as a relatively mild year as well. 1870 is unsettled with low pressure in from off the Atlantic Ocean. Looking at the upper air temperatures, they're nice and mild, so that is another mild year. Wow, wow, wow. When are we going to get our next cold one? This is 1871. Also looking generally quite mild, I think, on that one too. And that's 1872. Low pressure again coming in from off the Atlantic, bringing spells of rain and relatively mild temperatures. There we go. 1873. We've got our next cold one. Scandinavian high and an area of low pressure across southern England and northern parts of France. Look how much colder the upper air temperatures are, especially to our east, drawing in that very cold air from the east. So that's going to be cold and snowy, with the Scandinavian high bring that bitterly cold air in from the east, and this low pressure bumping against that very cold air, dumping a big amount of snow probably across southern parts of England. That's our next cold one. Back to mild and relatively dry for 1874. And also looking quite mild for 1875 as well, relatively dry too. Mild, wet and windy for 1876. And also mild, wet and windy for 1877 as well. High pressure dominating the weather for 1878, mostly dry and probably cold under that high pressure as it is centrally located. So I reckon that would bring the gruesome twosome frost and fog, and I will put that down as a cold chart. And then, of course, we've got the severely cold winter of 1878, 1879. And so we get to 2nd of February, 1879. We're looking cold, lots of northern blocking going on there. Upper temperatures are going a little bit milder down in the south. In the north, it is still cold, and there'll be snow across central northern areas as that milder air advances northwards into the cold air. I will put that one down generally as a cold year for 1879. Mild again for 1880, mostly dry, especially so down in the south. That could be a very mild, almost taste of spring type chart. But back to colder weather for 1881. This follows a severely cold January. And January 1881 will show up as a historic video at some point as well. This one bringing in the winds from the north and from the northeast, looking cold, especially so for central and northern areas. And that will bring more snow into the north. Back to dry and mild weather for 1882. And then 1883 looking very wet and windy under a dartboard area of low pressure. That's another mild one. 1884 generally mild with high pressure to our southwest, bringing wind from a west or southwesterly direction. And then wet and mild for 1885 as well. A little bit cooler maybe for 1886. Upper air temperatures are looking a little bit chillier, so I'll put that down as a colder year. Wintry showers, especially so in more northern and west areas, on those west to northwesterly winds. And then back to mild, wet and windy weather for 1888. 1887, I should say. 1888 looks like that. High pressure to the south, low pressure to the north. That's a classic westerly, so that's a mild setup too. And then cold and stormy for 1889 with low pressure to the north of Scotland, and the strong to gale force northwest winds will be driving snow showers in northern and western parts of the country. That's a really cold northwesterly blast that we've got going on there in 1889. 1890, relatively mild and dry, especially from south, some rain perhaps up in the north. 1891, also looking mild and dry with high pressure to the south, low pressure away to the northwest, and dragging up that long fetch southwesterly from the Azores. 1892, looking like that, a little bit colder and stormier. Again, we've got -5 Celsius iceberg through the country, so that will bring plenty of wintry showers, snow showers potentially, to the north and to the west. And then 1893 looks like that, probably relatively mild winds coming up from south westerly direction. Well, I suspect from the north and east, probably a little bit cooler, but I'll put that down as a mild chart. 1894, also looking mild, wet and windy. And then we've got 1895, and look at that blocking there, with high pressure from Greenland to Scandinavia, low pressure down close to Portugal. This is a severely cold February in a very cold winter, and at some point soon, I think we'll be doing a historic video for the winter of 1894. 1895. It has a severely cold sub-zero CET February. Upper air temperatures don't look that impressively cold on this particular day, but I can tell you that February 1895 was a severely cold month, and it's the last time there's a sub-zero CET until January 1940. So that is one for the record books in 1895. Very cold and snowy February. Back to dry and mild for 1896, and then we go to 1897, and looking at relatively mild, wet and windy, especially so for the south, although northern areas are actually colder, so maybe put that down as a cold chart, actually. A cold day with any mild weather restricted mostly to the southwest, so actually that's probably quite cold and could be rather snowy in 1897. 1898, a little bit of a cold snap taking place as that area of low pressure clears away to the east, and we bring some cold air briefly, I suspect, in from the west and from the northwest. And then 1899 also looks cold. That's a very mild winter, but there is a cold spell at the end of January into early February. And you see from the upper air temperatures, that's another cold 2nd of February in 1899. And with that, I think we shall have a little pause. Hello, Merry Christmas! Well, that was interesting, wasn't it? That's got us from 1836 to the 20th century. Second part of this of this Christmas Day historic video, we'll be looking at all February 2nd data from 1900 to around 1950 or so. And I shall see you very, very shortly with that. A jingle bell, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride on a one-horse open sleigh. Hey! Hello! Welcome back to the GavsWeatherVids Christmas Day 2022 historic video. Wow, 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 wow. Right, so we left off the first part of this video at 1899. We are now moving into 20th century. We're going to go from 1900 and continue looking at all February data. So let's do it, shall we? Right, so we're going to begin with the 2nd of February, Candlemas Day 1900, and it looks cold. We've got a blocking area of high pressure around Greenland, Iceland, with low pressure south, and winter coming in from an easterly direction. So this is a cold and wintry Candlemas Day, 2nd of February, to start off this middle section of this historic video. Let's go on to the next year. We've got another cold 2nd of February in 1901, with, again, mid-Atlantic ridge blocking towards Greenland, trough of low pressure through the north and the west of Europe. Upper air temperatures looking cold with that. You could definitely imagine this low down the south would be producing quite a bit of snow. And we've got another cold one here for 1902. Again, big blocking area of high pressure in the North Atlantic towards Greenland, Iceland. Winter coming in from an easterly direction. Not as cold with the easterlies on this one, but, you know, I reckon we can put that down as another cold Candlemas Day. 2nd of February 1903, looking quite a lot milder. High pressure is to our southwest, bringing wind from off the Atlantic, so I will chalk that one down as relatively mild. And this is also looking quite mild. I think it's 1904, with low pressure just to our south and southwest, and that's bringing in mild winds from off the Atlantic, no doubt, with the low pressure delivering quite a lot of rain. 1905 has us in a colder northwesterly flow. So you can see the -10 celsius ice flow actually getting into northern parts of Scotland there. And so, yeah, that's a pretty cold one, I think, in 1905. Wintry shower, particularly in the north. And 1906 also delivering quite a cold northwesterly to almost northerly blast with, again, snow showers likely across northern parts of the country. 2nd of February 1907, looking mostly dry and anticyclonic. I wouldn't have thought the upper air temperatures are that impressive about, but you can definitely see that this is a cold 2nd of February, so that's another cold one to add to the list, and maybe even a few snow showers into the far south and southeast. 1908 looks quite a lot milder. The Azores high is reaching to our southwest, so I will put that one down as relatively mild 2nd of February. And also 1909 looking pretty mild as well. This is quite a cold winter actually, but 2nd of February 1909 has low pressure to the north and high pressure around France from the Azores, and so we have a mild west or southwesterly wind with that one. Into 1910, we've got another mild one here with low pressure in off the Atlantic. That's bringing quite a lot of wet weather, but temperatures would be relatively mild. And then 1911, with high pressure dominating the weather. Technically, that's going to be relatively mild with the upper air temperatures anyway. I suspect there could be frost and fog due to the time of the year, you know, due to the era, I should say. Back in 1911, high pressure will very likely fog up. However, I think you'd probably put that down as a relatively mild one. 1912, big freeze. Look at this, a mild winter for 1911, 1912, but around the end of January into February, there is a one-off spell of extreme cold weather. So this has a large blocking of high pressure around Greenland, and we're bringing in those bitterly cold east or northeast winds. Look at those upper air temperatures. Big freeze is on. That's probably the coldest that we've seen so far in this video. The 2nd of February, severely cold across many parts of northern Europe, and that cold air is getting into the UK and Ireland as well. It goes on through several days actually, through the early part of February 1912 before it begins to retreat away by the 5th and into the 6th of February. But for a few days at the beginning of February 1912, 12. The weather is really very, very severely cold indeed, and also quite a lot of snow with that too. Back to milder winds from the Atlantic for 1913, with low pressure bringing wet and windy weather in from the west, and also looking mild on the 2nd of February 1914, with a long fetched southwesterly wind, high pressure to the south, low pressure to the northwest. We keep it going into 1915 as well, another mild, wet and windy 2nd of February then, and 1916 carries it on too. That one also Atlantic driven, mild, wet and windy. Then we're into the severely cold winter of 1916-17, and the 2nd of February 1917 looks like that. The trough of low pressure to north of Scotland, there is a blocking area of high pressure. That's around Greenland. It is a cold 2nd of February then, and that low pressure would be delivering snow to many parts of the country, particularly, but probably not exclusively, to the north. 1918 gets us back into mild southwesterly winds once again. Very mild, maybe exceptionally so, with wind coming up from a long way south. That was a very mild, if not warm, February in 1918. 1919, back to cold weather with high pressure blocking from Greenland into Iceland. Upper air temperatures are not excessively cold, but certainly you can put that one down as a cold 2nd of February, and there will be more snow showers in eastern parts of the country about. Into 1920s, 1920 looking very mild with a long fetched southwesterly, so that's a classic mild 2nd of February. 1921 has high pressure over Scandinavia and low pressure from the Atlantic battling against that. It's not overly cold, and that Scandinavian high never gets the cold air in, so I would put that down as a relatively mild Candlemas Day in 1921, to be honest. Let's move on. 1923, mild, wet and windy. Atlantic winds in from the west and from the southwest. And the same is true for 1923 as well. So 1922, 1923, both mild and Atlantic driven. 1924 with high pressure just to our southwest. That also is relatively mild and Atlantic driven. It carries on into 1925 too. Remember, many of the winters through the early to middle part of the 20th century were mild in the first 40 or so years. Now, it doesn't look like we've got 1926, so let's see if we can find another day. So that looks like it's missing from the archives, so we shall never know. We shall never know what was going on the 2nd of February 1926. We removed that one from the count then. Right, on to 1927, and again, looking relatively mild, maybe a little bit of cold snap from the north, but I think basically the weather's driving in from off the Atlantic, so I would suspect that is another pretty mild 2nd of February. And 1928 also looking wet and windy with low pressure in from off the Atlantic, a strong westerly and zonal flow. Now this is a cold winter of 1928-1929. We've got high pressure to our east, low pressure to the west. The upper air temperatures look relatively mild, so I suspect this is actually quite a mildish day within an otherwise cold winter on the 2nd of February 1929. Let's get into 1930s, and this one also looks relatively mild away from Scotland, where it's a bit colder, with winds in from the east, otherwise low pressure in off the Atlantic, bringing plenty of rain and wind. 2nd of February 1931, looks like that. So again, you know, it's a little bit on the cool side, but not particularly cold. I will put that one down as a relatively mild Candlemas Day as well. This is 1932 with high pressure once more sitting over the country, so that's a mild ridge of high pressure. It could deliver frost and fog, but I would add that one to the mild score as well. And then 1933, perhaps just a little bit colder into the far north of Scotland. We do bring down -5 Celsius, so perhaps put that one down as a rather colder Candlemas Day with wintry showers, particularly in the north. Back to relatively mild conditions, though, for 1934, with this ridge of high pressure sitting out to our west. And at 1935, also looking relatively mild. Long run of mild winters through the 1920s and 1930s generally. Now, 1936 looks a lot colder, so we've got low pressure to our east, a ridge in the Atlantic, and we're pulling down a northerly winds. So this one looks like it's actually turning colder on Candlemas Day 1936, and we will be getting snow showers into the north. I doubt it lasts all that long. For a few days in early February 1936, and otherwise relatively mild winter, it does turn a little bit colder there. Back to very mild weather for 1937 with low pressure to our west-southwest, upper coming modes, long-fetched southwesterly winds, and another mild Candlemas Day in 1938 as well, by the way. 1939 looks mostly anticyclonic, so that probably would deliver quite a lot of frost and fog. The upper air temperatures are going to be mild, but due to the position of the ridge to the over Germany, pulling in wind from up the continent, I suspect that could deliver frost and fog. Nevertheless, as the upper air temperatures are mild, I think we have to put that down as another mild one as well. And then we're into the 1940s. So this is how we look on the 2nd of February 1940. After the severely cold sub-zero CT January of 1940. It isn't as cold in February 1940, but even so, we have a legacy of that severely cold January of high pressure sitting to our east. The upper air temperatures look like that, so cold air is just to our east and northeast. It's trying to turn milder from the west and from the southwest, and that's looking on the 3rd of February. So proper battle is going on with the coldness of the air in the northeast. I think I would put that down as a cold Candlemas Day, to be honest. I reckon the leftover legacy of the severely cold January would still be in evidence there. So I would add that to the cold list. Right, let's move on to 1941. This is a cold February after a severely cold January again. And this looks very wintry with low pressure over northern France, bringing wind from the east, northeast. Upper air temperatures look very cold, especially to northern east. That's definitely a cold and wintry Candlemas Day. And we get another one in 1942 as well, with high pressure again blocking over Scandinavia, and the upper air temperature, particularly in the east, are looking cold. So that I would also add to the cold score, with that big blocking area of high pressure over Scandinavia, which really does take over during the first week of February 1942, bringing most bitterly cold east or northeast wind with -10 Celsius ice firm eventually arriving from the east. Let's move on to 1943. We're back to milder weather again. Low pressure north of Scotland, wet and windy weather in from off the Atlantic with that one. And then on into 1944, again, we've got westerly winds bringing mild, wet and windy weather, particularly so to the north and to the northwest. 1945 looks relatively mild too, with low pressure just to our east, maybe a little bit on the cold side for Northern Stratford. I will put that down as a mild February there. And another one for 1946, generally mild, west and windy, with winds in from the west. Well, what year is coming next? Here it is. We've got 1947, one of the snowiest winters on record. And this is a great example of the entire month of February 1947, really, with blocking areas of high pressure to our north and northeast, and these areas of low pressure coming up against that block. The upper air temperatures are not exceptionally cold, but cold enough for snow. And I suspect this low is delivering quite a lot of snow across many parts of the country. And it is indicative of what happens pretty much throughout February 1947, with various areas of low pressure coming up against these blocking areas of high pressure to the east and northeast, and delivering snow, particularly across England and Wales, interestingly. And so you see the easterly wind bring that bitterly cold air in from the east. It's one of the most severe Februaries and coldest winters on record, with just regular areas of low pressure coming up against that cold air and blocking air of high pressure to our northern east. It's an extraordinarily snowy winter. It's also a very cold winter, and I would definitely put Candlemas Day 1947 down in the cold category. Mild, wet, windy for 1948, the complete and total opposite, with winds in from the southwest. And then 1949 is relatively mild and dry into that area of high pressure. Into 1950, wet, windy and mild on 2nd of February 1950, quite stormy, and also looking relatively mild in 1951 as well. 1952 looks relatively mild, I would have thought, so upper air temperature a bit on the cold side, but winds are coming in from off the Atlantic. Showers could be wind shear, but I'll probably put that down as a cold one. 1953 has high pressure to north of Scotland, reaching up towards Scandinavia. Winds are in from the east and northeast, so that's quite a cold Candlemas Day in 1953. And 1954, of course, is a cold February with winds in from the east, so we see about -10 Celsius iceberg across England and Wales, probably quite a lot of snow showers coming in from the east there. Candlemas Day 1954. 1955 brings low pressure in from off the Atlantic. The cold weather from January 1955 has gone, so it's turned milder and wetter temporarily. The cold does come back later in February 1955, but at this point it's relatively mild and unsettled. And then we move on into 1956. Of course, this is a severely cold February, and that area of high pressure over Scandinavia is bringing that bitterly cold air in from the east. Look at those upper air temperatures at the beginning of February 1956. Absolutely extraordinary first day of the month. It's not as cold on the second day of the month, but that is an extreme freeze-up that we have at the beginning of February 1956, courtesy of that Scandinavian high, bringing lots of snow from the east as well. So definitely we can put that one down in the cold category. It's a sub-zero CT month, so soon after 1947 as well. Back to milder weather for 1957, with winds in from the southwest, and also looking relatively mild in 1958 as well. Of course, there could be frost and fog with this high pressure, but I put that down as largely mild one. And then finally, for this middle section of this historic video, we have 1959. Again, high pressure dominates the weather. There could be frost and fog, but I would also be putting that one down as a relatively mild 2nd of February, Candlemas Day. Right, we'll pause the video one last time, and when we resume, we're going to begin in 1960, and we will go all the way through to 2021. No, it's going to be epic. I shall see you about in around 1 second's time. Oh, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, the tidings we bring for you and your king. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Wow, 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 wow! It's Christmas Day, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. GavsWeatherVids on your Christmas Day. It's amazing, it's epic, it's incredible. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. We did another historic video for its Christmas Day. We're looking at all February 2nd data. For this one, we've got to 1960. And this is the third and final section of this video. So we're going to go from 1960 right way up to 2022. Can you believe that, everyone? Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for doing that if you're enjoying this video. And I hope you're having a lovely Christmas Day. I hope this Christmas Day has been everything that you could have wanted and dreamt for. I just hope you've all had the best day that you could possibly have had. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Rich as well, of course, for the incredible gift. Right, okay, let's do this final section. So we're into the 1960s. This is how Candlemas Day 1960 is looking, with low pressure to our west and southwest dragging up this very mild southerly southwest winds and mild wet windy Candlemas Day in 1960. 1961 looking quite a lot colder, with low pressure to our east, jet stream digging southwards as well. Not overly cold though, so maybe some wintry showers in the north, but probably put that down as a milder year. And also looking pretty mild for the 2nd of February 1962, with high pressure to our south, low pressure to the north, winds in from off the Atlantic. And then guess what's coming next, everyone? Guess. It's the daddy! It's the daddy! It's 1963. Wow, 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 wow! It's the daddy of cold winters. It's 1963, and there it is. We've definitely got a cold Candlemas Day for February the 2nd, 1963. At high pressure as it is throughout most of winter, blocking around Greenland, Iceland, in the North Atlantic, and winds coming in from that easterly direction. Look at those upper air temperatures. It's a bitterly cold Candlemas Day in 1963 with a minus 10 Celsius ice well throughout the entire country. Loads of snow probably in the south and the east being drawn in on those bitterly cold easterly winds, but daddy delivering yet more cold weather in the severely cold winter, coldest winter since 1740 of 1963. Wow, wow, wow. Exciting, isn't it? Well, we go 1964 and it all goes a little bit flaccid. With high pressure to our south, low pressure to the north, and up comes those mild southwest winds. So that definitely gets put into the mild column. 2nd of February 1965 has us under an area of high pressure, probably frost and fog with that, but the upper air temperature is relatively mild, so I would add that to the mild column as well. And then into the 2nd of February 1966, mild, wet, windy with winds in from off the Atlantic. The same is true for 1967. That's another mild one. And then 1968 looks a little bit colder, especially so for more northern areas. So I would add that to the cold category. And there could be some wintry showers up in the north. Now, February 1969 is a very cold and snowy month. It all begins at the end of January. So by the 2nd of February 69, most bitterly cold northerly winds are in. And we're driving snow showers southwards with that very cold air plunging in from the Arctic. So definitely add 1969 to the cold category. I hope you're enjoying the count, everyone, and seeing which is in the lead. Is it cold? Is it mild? Is it mild? Is it cold? I wonder. Into the 1970s, mild, wet and windy on Candlemas Day 1970, and looking generally quite mild but relatively dry in 1971. 1972 looks stormy, and we find mild air driving in from off the Atlantic there as well, so that's another mild one. And 1973 generally dry and mild under that area of high pressure. 1974 wet and windy, winds are in off the Atlantic, so that one is also going to be mild. 1975 dry and mild under that area of high pressure, maybe even a taste of spring with that. Colder for 1976, generally a very mild winter, 75, 76, but we do get a pretty colder interlude at the end of January into the start of February from the east, so a little bit on the cold side there. Few snow showers coming in on those easterly winds with that one. Let's carry on into 1977. It's mild, wet, windy, winds coming in from off the Atlantic. And then 1978 is starting to get cold. So I will put this into the cold category. It gets colder and colder from here through the rest of February 1978. And then we're into 1979. Of course, severely cold. Winter has severely cold January. Last time we have a sub-zero CT, January is in 1979. Cold weather still continuing into the start of February of 1979, particularly so in the north. So again, I will put that down in the cold category. Now, I know that we chose Candlemas Day rather than Valentine's Day, but as we're doing this, and as Valentine's Day was a potential day we could have looked at for this video, let's have a quick look, why not, at Valentine's 1979, because look at that, it really did unleash the beast. So we get a very, very severely cold easterly wind Valentine's Day 1979. Look at those upper air temperatures on the 14th and also on the 15th of February 1979. That has a severely cold Valentine's Day. What the other years were looked at on Valentine's Day, I have no way of knowing. But I did want to include that, you know, because it is one of the most historic charts. But we have with those extremely cold easterly winds, bitterly cold upper air temperatures, and just imagine all the snow that's driving in on those sub-zero easterly winds coming all the way from deepest Siberia. Goodness gracious me, it's good this, isn't it? I hope you're having a lovely Christmas day. Thank you so much, everybody. Right, let's move on. 1980. This one looks rather unsettled and pretty wet with low pressure in off the Atlantic Ocean. A little bit cold for North Scotland, but I think I'll put that one down as a relatively mild one. And then 1981, also very mild, with winds in from the southwest, wet and windy in the north. 1982, looking generally mild as well. High pressure to the east, low pressure to west, winds coming up from the south. And then 1983 looks a little bit colder, winds in from a northwesterly direction. And quite cold for Scotland, so definitely put 2nd of February 1983 into the cold category. 1984 has low pressure up the Atlantic, that one looking pretty mild as well. And then 1985 is actually relatively mild too, away from the far north of Scotland. We have a pause. We have a very cold January in 1985, and then later on in February it gets very cold again. There's a pause early February into a milder interlude. So that's a relatively mild Candlemas Day within an otherwise cold winter. 1986, very cold, winds in from the east. Have a look at the upper air temperatures. Not that impressive, but you can see the cold is originating, the air is originating from Russia. So, of course, this is the last time we have a sub-zero CT February in 1986, and regular high pressure in Scandinavia, regular easterly winds definitely put February the 2nd, 1986 into the cold category. Relatively mild on the 2nd of February 1987, and then we move into the late 1980s, so wet and windy here in 1988, also very mild of course, and also very mild 1989, and also 1990. We have a trilogy of very mild winters at the end of the 1980s. Dry and cold in 1991, beginning to set up the severely cold pattern that's going to take over by the 7th of February 1991. We're going to get that bitterly cold air in from the east and bring in like a foot of snow across southeastern and southern parts of England in that particular big freeze. It's all beginning to get into place on Candlemas Day 1991. So that will be a dry, cold and frosty Candlemas Day. Definitely put that down into the cold category. 1992 is back to milder, wetter and windier weather once again, as is 1993. Wet in the north, dry in the south, very mild. 1994 also looking Atlantic driven and mild, as does 1995. 1996 is colder with high pressure to the north, and we're bringing in a wind from the east, so that's a dry and cold day on the 2nd of February 1996. Of course, there is a snow event a couple of days after that. 1997 is back to milder conditions with winds in from off the Atlantic. A little bit of a cold snap may be taking place in 1998, so especially so in the north and the east. That's a slightly cooler one within an otherwise relatively mild winter. And then, very mild winter actually. And then 1999 looks mild and dry with high pressure ridging up from the Azores. Right, we're into the 2000s. So 2000 is another mild Candlemas Day. Colder for 2001. This is the famous Ketley High scenario. We've got high pressure over Scandinavia and bitterly cold air just about to start trying to move in from the east. It does get in to Scotland famously and delivers copious amounts of snow to Scotland, but for England and Wales we just stay on the mild side of this trough of low pressure. So for 2001, I would put that down probably as a relatively mild Candlemas Day, to be honest. 2002, also looking mild, wet and windy, as does 2003, although something a little bit colder is coming in on those northwest winds. So maybe actually put 2003 into the cold category. And then on into 2004, generally mild, wet, windy with this long fetch southwesterly drag up exceptionally mild air all the way from the Azores. Look at those upper air temperatures, exceptionally mild for 2004. 2005 also looking relatively dry, and mild 2006 under high pressure. You know, I suspect there is frost and fog going on, but it's a relatively mild ridge, so I would add that one to the mild category as well, as we can 2007, probably even taste of spring there. Wet and windy on the 2nd of February 2008, but at least it's mild. And then we're into 2009. This is much colder, of course, high pressure over Scandinavia, bringing those winds from the east with low pressure in the south and the southeast, producing a lot of snow. So this is a very cold easterly, of course, that we drag in at the beginning of February 2009, and the low pressure that forms within that cold air delivers a major snow event, actually, around 2nd of February across the south and the southeast. That's a bitterly cold and snowy Candlemas Day in 2009. Another cold Candlemas Day for 2010. High pressure blocking around Greenland ice and low pressure to our east as well. Upper air temperatures look cold, especially so for the north. So that will bring snow showers into the north and the northeast. We're back into milder weather though for 2011. Mild, wet, windy winds in from off the Atlantic Ocean. Dry and cold for 2010, high pressure blocking, well 2012 I should say, high pressure blocking over Scandinavia, ridging into some parts of Europe. Look at the upper air temperatures, bitterly cold weather covering most parts of Europe. It's generally mild winter for 2011-2012, but there is that very cold spell that we get at the beginning of February 2012, so that one I'm sure can go into the cold category. 2013, actually having a little bit of a reprieve from the cold weather, so it's slightly milder out west. However, looking at the upper end temperatures, they're quite chilly, so I think we can put 2013 in the cold camp as well, actually. Yeah, that looks quite a cold day there in 2013. 2014, very stormy winter, so this is going to be mild, wet, windy, of course. 2015 looks colder with a mid-Atlantic ridge, trough of low pressure to our east, so we've got more cold weather on Candlemas Day 2015. Right, so this is Candlemas Day 2016. A little bit of a cold snap taking place on this one as well, maybe, with the wind coming in from the northwest, maybe some wintry showers into northern and western parts of the country. Wet and windy and looking pretty mild on the 2nd of February 2017. Upper air temperatures look very mild there, so definitely put that into the mild camp. Near the end now, everyone. This is 2018. Maybe a little bit of a cold snap taking place there with -5 Celsius iceberg through the country. Not a particularly wintry day, but probably put that down into the cold camp. And 2nd of February 2019, also looking quite cold, with a little bit of a cold snap being brought from the north there. Mild, wet and windy for Candlemas Day 2020. Bring the air in from off the Atlantic. And then 2021 has low pressure in off the Atlantic. Cold just to our north. Upper air temperatures relatively mild away from Scotland. Probably add that to the mild category. And then finally 2022 on Candlemas Day. Looks like that. And again, it's another pretty mild one with high pressure to our south and winds in from off the Atlantic Ocean. Upper air temperatures looking exceptionally mild across southern parts of the country on the 2nd of February 2022. Right, well, what a Christmas update this has been. What a Christmas video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in on this Christmas day. We have completed the trilogy now. So we've done all Christmas days. We've done all New Year's days. And we've done all Candlemas Days over the past 3 Christmases. And that is another trilogy complete. Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking with the trilogy. I hope you found it fun, useful, informative, and, you know, had a little bit of a laugh as well. You enjoyed what's left of your Christmas day. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in on this Christmas day. Thank you so much to Richard for the amazing Christmas updates or Christmas video gift. Thank you so much, Rich, for that. And yeah, just have the best Christmas day that you can possibly have. I hope this Christmas day is everything that you wanted, everything that you wish for. I hope it's a Christmas of your dreams, and have a fantastic day, whatever is left of it. Tomorrow on Boxing Day at GavsWeatherVids, probably no 6 AM upload, but we will have a 10 to 14 day later on in the day. Usually do a 10-14 day on Boxing Day. For this year's Christmas Day 2022 historic video, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Christmas Day, and bye for now.